It's a long-term game. If you just want what that dad wants, which is family, I'm going to cough around and say family. What you really want is an easy road out. You actually want compliance. That's your core value, buddy, right? Literally beyond. We could, yeah. It's not going to be easy.
Actually, because you don't follow the idea that I have about family, I'm actually going to kick you out of the house and not let anybody find out. So it's like, is your core value actually family? Or is your core value to appear like a family based on your dictatorial beliefs about what a family is supposed to look like? Hey, everybody, it's Bianca.
And it's Emilia. Welcome back, Evolvers.
One of the things that we are so passionate about here at Evolve, because of how much of an impact it makes on every single one of us, is talking about parenting and the relationship between parents and children, because we all have parents, or we all have parental figures. And many of us, if we are not parents because we have children, we have people that look up to us in our life, or we have interactions, or we have, created families that we are going to have. And all of us are impacted, for better or for worse, by the parenting and the families and the experiences that we have with all of these. And so if you don't know the tools and the skills and the systems and the habits and all of the things necessary to be able to have the absolute best families possible, to be really great parents, to be great friends and great partners and all of these things, this is where family system traumas and burdens and challenges really happen. And not for nothing, this is the stuff that kids end up going to therapy for when they're like, my parents never did this stuff. So our intention is both proactive and reactive. In this episode, we're going to dive into two really fundamental things that you as the listener can do, whether you have children or not, whether you're thinking about having kids in the future, or whether you want to try this with the family that you already have. Like, if you want to make improvements and if you want the quality of your relationships to be better, we're going to dive into two tools that you can utilize to help you really have a happy family.
And happiness, you and I were talking about this, like having a happy family. It's not just happiness for happiness sake. It's so much more than that. And as a matter of fact, it's a byproduct of what we're going to be talking about in this episode. And I'm so grateful that you had mentioned chosen family, because maybe you might not have, children yet, or maybe you might not have or ever want your own children. There is a chosen family that you do have in terms of support around you. And that might not be huge. That might even consist of one person. That might even consist of people that are entirely virtual, sitting on total opposite ends of the world. But all of us are brought into this world with some degree of family. That doesn't mean that they have grown up with you. They are going through the things that you're going through. And that certainly does not guarantee that they know you at the deepest levels. However, we know, like you said, when it comes to the behind the scenes look that we get into people's lives, that we're so privileged to hold a space in at Evolve, is when you peel back the curtains of some of the biggest challenges in life that people are struggling with, a lot of it does tie back down to our families and what more specifically our families did or they didn't do and the ramifications of that. So in this episode, how to have a happy family, we mentioned tools specifically because tools have purpose, right? Tools are utilitarian by nature, meaning that they're serving a purpose within our lives. And so when we look at families and what families are really for, families are meant for, families serve, whether it be the chosen or the origin, they serve a very fundamental aspect when it comes to our health, our mental health, our emotional health, our spiritual health, our physical health, our social health and well-being. And studies show again and again, the data continuously shows, despite how interconnected we are, despite how much technology we have apart, that there's a biological imperative that we all have which is the need to belong. And when we have a family or feeling a sense of that familial community support system, we have increased measures of health, increased capacity for longevity, and improved overall decision making to make those possible. So, not only is happiness for happiness sake something to aspire to from my perspective, but happiness from a family systems and a utilitarian standpoint is actually a function of better well-being, of better mental
Mm.
health, of better emotional, spiritual, mental, and physical well-being. And so looking at it from that standpoint of the tools that we're going to talk about today is a function to a means to an end to have better health, have better well-being, have all of these things that we aspire to. We can start by doing that, by getting very clear on what those tools are for you. So I have
Absolutely. Before
before
you dive in, super quick,
yeah.
we at Evolve do not believe in quick fixes. Okay?
True.
Quick fixes don't work. What we are talking about and what we're going to be diving into are tools that will work over the long term if you can develop the patience and the humility to allow it to be over the long term. A lot of the things that we talk about here are things that will potentially take a while before you see the fruit of them, before you see the fruit of your labor.
Mhm.
And that's really exciting because you can get more excited about the process than the outcome.
Mm.
I think that's what makes growth so exciting. So I just needed
Same.
to make sure that I said that. These are not quick fixes. Okay. We
Yeah.
don't believe in that.
Mhm.
And if you let it take the time it needs, you'll actually have what you want, which is the
Yeah.
happy family that you basically just identified and described.
It's so true. And someone might hear that maybe that they're in, like I have clients that are coming to mind that are in their 60s and their 70s that might say, well, I don't necessarily have the same amount of time as maybe some of your 20-year-old teens or young adults that are in more of the front end of their life. And I hear that. And that's where frequency and repetition within the time that you do have these tools can really help you jump that curve, for lack of
Awesome.
better words. Right. So, yes, time. And if you don't feel like you have as much time, let's say, for example, you're in your 60s or 70s and hearing this, that doesn't necessarily mean this doesn't and it can't apply to you, because it's a matter of where you are in your life and how much you are applying this within a given day even, right? And everything that we do breaks down to what we do in a day, because those days are the days that repeat again and again and again. And that becomes ultimately our weeks become our months becomes our quarters become our year, and the years become our lifetime. So with this, I have two couples that are coming to mind. One of them is a client and one of them is a team member that's within Alan's team. And you and I were talking about this, and there's two individuals that came to mind when I thought about, they're at, right now they have 3+ children, each family, where they have kids who are a byproduct and really actually like fulfilled families. And that has become so rare nowadays because of, like I said, the tools that parents are consciously choosing to utilize and integrate into the day to day when it comes to not only their parenting, but way beyond that, as a friend, as a part of the family system. And I look at those two families, not just look, but I understand they're behind the scenes, right? Like I said, one is a client, another one is a team member, and was a former client in relationship talks coaching. And their kids are exuding with this joy. They're exuding with fulfillment, and they're young
Mm.
adults and teens, even that when you're typically in that like kind of screw life teenager phase, like you can still see them radiating a degree of respect, a degree of values that have been instilled within them from a young age as a result of their parents being conscious parents and utilizing tools to be able to have a happy family, right? So on the surface level, the goal when you initially have this family system, be it because in a byproduct of your relationship or, like you said, a chosen family, you want to design a life that you can be happy with, right? You can experience a degree of pride with. When you look back at all of your experiences, you're like, wow, we did that. Not I did that. We did that, right? Because it's a collective. And when I look at those two families, the biggest tool that I've seen them instill, which is what I want to bring forward to each and every single one of us, no matter where we are in the growth journey, no matter how old or young we are or feel, no matter how well developed or just getting into this growth journey we are, the first tool comes down to values. Now, I want, if you're listening to this episode, right, like you and I can both think of our core values. Our core values are those guiding principles, that guiding word. I usually have each client pick their top 3 core values because those are the guardrails, for lack of better words, that will guide our decision making of how we show up in life. So when you're someone who, let's say you're a leader or you're a contributor of the family, imagine what just having a family core value could do in terms of guiding principles of behaviors within the family systems. Now, a lot of families will just have family as a core value, right? Think about that. How that guides the family system is it means that everything is about family. Everything is about family, and your family, like blood is thicker than whatever, like all the family mottos and stuff that ends up becoming the cage and the traumatizing, ironically, experiences that people have is because families just choose a value that doesn't have the long term in mind. And so that I would not consider a tool. I would consider that actually the opposite of that.
Well, it also doesn't identify what that means.
Right.
What your core value is family. What does that actually mean? Because I know somebody whose core value is family, but what it actually means is we have to look like a united front, and it doesn't matter what happens behind the scenes. Actually, because you don't follow the idea that I have about family, I'm actually going to kick you out of the house and not let
Right.
anybody find out. So it's like, is your core value actually family, or is your
Right.
core value to appear like a family based on your dictatorial beliefs about what a family is supposed to look like?
Yeah.
I have a client who literally told me his dad told him that he wants his family to be like the Von Trapp family from The Sound of Music, to where when he blows a whistle, they come and line up in front of him and they salute him. And I'm like, your dad did
I
not say
bet
that to
he
you.
would. I bet he would. And
I'm like,
imagine how horrible that would be.
yeah, all of his children are severely depressed and
No
overweight,
wonder.
and so is
Oh,
he. It's
right.
like,
There's
okay.
implications.
Okay. All right. Good luck with that.
Brutal.
So when you're defining your core value,
Well, Bianca loses her mind over that. We said what we said at the very beginning because of the fact that it's a long-term game. If you just want what that dad wants, which is family, I'm going to cough around and say family. What you really want is an easy road out. You actually want compliance. That's your core value, buddy. Right?
No,
Literally.
obedience is your
Beyond.
core value.
Yeah. We could,
You
yeah.
have,
It's
you-
not going to
yes.
be easy.
No. We have to define what the core value is and what does it actually look like. Emilia and I both
In action.
really, really value fitness.
Right.
What it looks like for Emilia versus what it looks like for me is radically different because we are two very different people. And
Right.
because we have different definitions of it, it's going to look very different for the both of us in action and in the way that we work with that core value. So for all of you, something that I wish my family did, I wish we actually had a dialogue about it.
Me too.
Like, have a conversation with your kids. And I'm not saying this from a perspective of like, I've done this. I'm having this from a conversation of, I wish my parents did this. I wish we sat down as a family and we're like, what really matters to us? What would make you and this family feel really loved and welcomed and wanted here? What would you value? And how can we all do that and then kind of come up with what that's going to look like for all of us as a family? Yeah. You know how many problems would be like gone from this world if kids grew up feeling, and families in general, if children and parents and aunts and uncles and whatever grew up sincerely feeling loved and seen and wanted.
And a part of that process of developing the architecture too, not just a power dynamic, like
Yes.
seen as an
Yes.
equal in that. Because if you're invited to be in that collaborative space, then like that alone shows you all of those things in action. It's not just the saying it, but it's the like actually the invitations. Like part of me is so excited to have children to be able to do these things that we're talking about right now. And the other part of me knows that there's a time and a place for that. And right now is not the time. But like,
No.
imagine that. Imagine if the one tool that we're talking about is core values. I already know when, like, the first thing that comes to mind is compassion and courage. I know that those two core values are going to be so big within our family. We're going to have a dialogue around what that means and what that looks like in action. We're going to invite the children to define that and to redefine that, because one of the core things here that is tool number 2 is that when you define a core value and you use that as a tool, you define it, and then you maybe even put the disclaimer that we're going to come back and redefine this each year because we recognize that we grow and we evolve. If you just have that one core value and you use that tool of, let's just use compassion, for example, you use that tool again and again, and that's your guiding principle for life. What happens when you don't redefine that and compassion becomes the glass ceiling that actually impacts your family in a way that causes a lot of their trauma? Maybe they're so compassionate because of that core value that they've looked past all the red flags of their boyfriend when they're in middle school, or they've looked past the abusive friend relationship while they're video gaming, and the abusive nature of their friend group. Like, because their core value being raised, that tool has been so deeply instilled and ingrained within them that now it's become their glass ceiling. And now the traumas that they're experiencing in the world is a byproduct of that. So the second tool is the ability to reassess and reevaluate from a system standpoint, and system in this case once a year, just literally once a year check-in as a family.
Yeah.
To really check in and, like you said, have the dialogue. Okay, we're going to have a growth conversation as a family. Like, these are the terms, like, this is what we're going to talk about. We want to invite your, obviously a 3-year-old can't have that conversation. But what happens when by the time that 3-year-old is 6 years old, let's just say, that's already something that mom and dad, or mom and mom, dad and dad, whomever, grandma and grandpa, have already been doing with them in the environment with. They're seeing it being done, and now they actually have a verbal capacity, let's say, to participate in something like that. Imagine what that could do and how that would contribute to, again, the byproduct of a happy life well lived.
I know a lot of people probably don't believe that they have the communication skills to be able to do what we're talking about. We've done episodes before on things like how to set boundaries and nonviolent communication and a lot of these other topics. So if you aren't already subscribed, please make sure you go subscribe so that you can, find and get access to those episodes. But I was listening to this interview with Dr. Becky Kennedy. I think I sent you it. She was on Andrew Huberman's podcast, and they had done round 2. And she was talking about a lot of this. So Dr. Becky Kennedy is a clinical psychologist who works with children and families, for anyone who doesn't know who she is. And she was talking about the fact that even from the youngest age, when you can model these things to your children, they might not consciously know what you're saying. They might not really understand it. But growing up in a home that has that as its foundation, they will grow up as more functional, healthy, happier children, and you and them will have a way, way better relationship. Most of us grew up in families that had no idea how to communicate with each other. The values were very implicit. The Darvo effect was used way
So
too
much.
often, and we did an episode on that. So if you haven't listened to that one, please go listen to that one.
Mm-hmm.
It was all control and regulation and manipulation and guilt trips and blah, 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 blah. If you actually want a happy, healthy family, it's up to you to set the tone. And a lot of us don't want that much responsibility, but if it's not going to be you, then who else is going to do it? You have to be willing to start. And if you start and if you can help everyone to see how much of a benefit that this is going to have on all of you, they will eventually join you. And it won't just be on your back.
Yeah. So that second tool is the systems. It's really boundaries ultimately when we boil it down. First tool is core value establishment. Second is boundaries, to understand where that core value definition is evolving and the fringes and the edges where they end, right? And I am 1000% with you being that, like it is so wildly understated how much modeling leadership is so unconscious. And within a family system, when you're modeling the certain set of behaviors, the decision making that's out loud, right? A lot of people pick up on that. I had a client that's coming to mind right now. We were talking about, she wanted to change her routine, and she and her husband are getting married in Q4, and they both want to change up their routine. And when I asked her, I was like, what do you think is your husband or your fiance? Is he more apt to respond by kind of like just seeing you do it, and then he's going to improve on those things, because couples rub off on each other, or do you think like he's going to be able to get after it and establish his routine on his own? And she's like, well, what I've noticed is it's a lot easier, instead of saying like, go ahead and do X, Y, and Z, these things that might be beneficial for you. It's a lot easier for me to just like, get up and make the bed. And then when he sees me do that, he's also going to mirror me. And so it's those tiny little things, whether it be in your intimate relationship, whether that be in your family systems, or whether that be you and your children, they're watching. People are watching and observing. And even if they aren't consciously, you're their primary focus and you're in their peripherals, or you're in their social media feeds, or you're in their orbit, that watching is unconscious. And so as individuals who are in the evolve orbit, that are adults who are trying to lead by example, a lot of the things that you're doing, that you're saying, and that you're modeling is having an impact and setting the foundation for other people who are looking up to you. Miss Giggles, please share.
I'm just laughing at what you were telling me before about us being watched.
Oh yeah.
When you just said that, it just brought that back up. So
Bianca and I, total random story.
Everyone's watching. Everyone is watching. Just be mindful.
Yes.
More people are watching than you think.
For sure. Right. And we have had to learn that in some really interesting ways. So it's both a blessing and concerning. Okay.
We choose to use our powers for good here, though.
We do.
Good watching. We do. Watch us and model, please.
Model
all right.
Getting core values clear and establishing boundaries. Anywho, my episode suggestion is 305 Motivation Monday, how to respect yourself and your family. B.
If you are someone that doesn't feel as though you are capable of doing this on your own, before I give my episode suggestion, please do not hesitate to reach out. Emilia and I are both still taking clients, whether it's one-on-one or for the You Do You program. People are really loving that program. It's super helpful for anyone who doesn't have the space, time, energy, or bandwidth to do video calls. It's all online. It's all through your phone. So if you want help with this, please reach out. My episode suggestion is 363. Did a boundary get crossed, or am I just sensitive? All right, everyone. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We hope you enjoyed my relentless laughing. And we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.